There is a specific kind of hunger that the rap culture knows how to feed, and that hunger is the need to be seen, to be counted, and to matter in a world that you do not. The music takes that hunger and points it at a void inside you. And we should be clear that the void was not created by the music. The void was already there, and it came from growing up without enough attention, without enough safety, and without enough proof that you matter to anyone. The music simply finds that void and tells you that you can fill it with a chain, with a car, or with a corner where everyone knows your name. And that is the promise. The thing is that the music never tells you that the void does not actually get filled by any of those things. You can get the chain and still feel empty, and you can get the car and still feel invisible, and you can get on the corner and still feel like you are one mistake away from losing everything. What the music does not say is that the mugshot, the docket number, and the bunk bed are also ways of trying to fill the void, except those ways actually work for the system. The hunger is real, but the feeding is a trap, and the system has been running this exact feeding program for so long that we stopped noticing it. Now, in our first video, we broke down the YN from an astrological perspective, and we talked about how Mars is the primary energy signature for the youngest person in the street hierarchy. We looked at Mars in compromised conditions like fall, detriment, and combustion, and other aspects to Saturn, and we showed you how the YN operates in the gap between the aggression and the consequence that have not yet arrived. We also introduced the moon as the source of the wound, the emotional need for belonging that drives the YN to seek respect on the street. So if you have not watched that video, go back and check it out because we are building on that foundation here. Now, we need to understand where that void really comes from, and we need to make a clear distinction here. Most people will hear the word void and think about their mother, and that is actually the right place to start. Void begins with your mother, with the person who was supposed to hold you and feed you and make you feel like you mattered. When she was absent or overwhelmed or emotionally unavailable, her absence created a wound inside of you. The wound is the original void, but we are moving into the age of Aquarius, and that shift requires us to expand the symbol. The Aquarian age, the void is not just about personal mother, it is also about your father, and it's also about the system itself. The father who was not there, the state that offered no safety, the government that treated you as a threat instead of a child. So the void comes from your mother first, but it is fed by the father and the system, and all three of them are responsible for the hunger that rap culture later learns to exploit. That is the distinction we have to hold on to. You cannot blame the system alone, and you cannot blame your mother alone. You have to see how all of them worked together to create the emptiness inside of you. Today, we are going to look at the myth that has been telling the same story for almost 3,000 years, and that story is about Ares, the god of war, who gets trapped inside a bronze jar. In Homer's Iliad, two giant twins named Otus and Ephialtes decide to storm Mount Olympus, and Ares charged out to stop them because that is what he does. He is pure aggression, pure drive, and pure Mars energy, but the giant easily overpowers him. They bind him in heavy chains, and they stuff him inside a large bronze jar, and they seal him in there for 13 months. Here is the detail that matters. While Ares is trapped inside that jar, he cannot touch the world at all. So a period of absolute peace falls over the earth with no battles, no violence, and no conflict. The god of war is gone, and so the world goes quiet. That is the same thing that happens when a YN gets locked up, because the coroner gets quiet and the police logs show fewer incidents while the neighborhood feels safer to people who do not live there. But that peace is not real peace, and it is just the silence that comes when the most visible person in the hierarchy has been removed from view. Ares nearly dies in that jar, and he is only saved because the giant stepmother tells Hermes where he is hidden so that Hermes can sneak in and release him. So let us connect this directly to what we said about the YN. Ares is Mars, and the YN is Mars, and the jar is a system of laws, policing, surveillance, and prison. The YN do not see the jar because he is too busy looking at the corner, the package, the chain, or the car, and the music told him to want those things while the void inside him agreed. So he charges out just like Ares charged out, and the system, which does not need to fight him, simply catches him and seals him inside. Now we need to talk about who built the jar and who profits from it. In the myth, the giant built the jar, but the one who profits from the order that follows, which is the peace, the quiet, and the predictability, is Saturn. Saturn is a planet that rules structure, hierarchy, discipline, and time, and imprisonment. So when you say that the system is Saturn, we mean that the laws are an expression of Saturn and the jails are an expression of Saturn. Saturn does not need to fight Mars directly, and Saturn just needs the jar to hold. The jar holds because the YN does not have Hermes yet, and he does not have the intelligence, the cunning, or the ability to slip between boundaries that would let him find the seam and get out. The system is not a person or a group of people. It is better understood as a structure that has been running the same operation since before Homer wrote a single line. The music changes over time, and the chains get heavier or lighter, while the corners get new names, but the jar is the same every time. The YN walks into it again and again. The hunger that rap culture feeds is the same hunger that Ares had, which is the need to be seen, to be counted, and to matter. The system uses that need as a fuel, and that is how the trap works. Let us show you what that jar actually looks like.
Fucking free, bitch. That is the reason why my bitch ass be out here now. I have no problem working my ass off for the rest of my life because I know what it feels like to work and get nothing. The shit is real. Is the shit real fucked up? Absolutely. But you have to understand that when you make the decisions that you make with those groups of friends and motherfuckers that is not gonna stand 10 toes with your ass, when it's time for you to go to trial and be in shit like this, you're gonna have to understand that you made that bed and you're gonna lay in that bitch alone. Nobody else. You're laying in that bed alone. When you choose.
That is Saturn, that is the jar, and that is where the hunger ends if Hermes does not reach you in time. So what is the way out? The myth tells us that the rescue comes from Hermes, who is Mercury, and Mercury rules communication, intelligence, trickery, and the ability to cross boundaries without being seen. Ares cannot rescue himself because force does not open the jar from the inside, so someone has to bring Hermes to him. For the YN, that someone could be a mentor who teaches him to stop charging and start watching. Or it could be a lawyer who knows how to talk to a judge. It could be an older player who gives him a different kind of responsibility, not just running packages, but learning the numbers. Or it could be a moment in his own head where he realizes that silence is a weapon and that not every confrontation needs to be answered. But Saturn does not want Hermes to reach the YN, and Saturn prefers the jar sealed. That is why the system spends so much money on policing and so little money on mentoring. And that is why the music industry can sell the corner lifestyle while the same corporation invests in private prison. The trap is not a mistake, and it is a design. The first step out the trap is simply seeing that the jar exists, because the YN cannot escape what he cannot name. So we name it. The system, the Saturn, the jar. Now you know what you are standing inside.